is little agreement on what assessment literacy is. Basically, some scholars or researchers define it as one who is being able to assess a student, like administer a test, design a test, have a purpose for a test or an assessment task, administer that test, being able to evaluate the test, interpret the results of a certain test. All of that comes into the definition of assessment literacy. However, when we look deeply into the literature of assessment or educational assessment in general, you will see that the investigators or researchers looked into assessment literacy from different aspects. Some of them look at it in terms of the perceptions of teachers, if we're focusing on teachers. Others look at the knowledge, and of course, what that knowledge constitutes is a different issue. Others also focus on assessment practices when they talk about assessment literacy. There are two different sources of challenges, I would say. The formal education that we equip our teachers with, what kind of teacher preparation programs we are offering. Are we incorporating any kind of assessment courses in these programs or not? If we look at into the literature, we find that most of the studied programs to have only one or two courses. They offer only one or two courses in the teacher preparation programs, and some of them, unfortunately, offer none for their teachers. So these teachers graduate and they join teaching in the educational institute with little or zero knowledge about assessment and how to conduct assessment. The other challenge when we recruit these teachers and they become teachers in the classrooms, they face it's a challenge again, how to test, because they have to test anyway. So here comes the role again of the educational institutes that recruit these graduates of teacher preparation programs, and how much training do they offer their teachers with. When it comes to assessment, do we follow up with our teachers? Do we analyze their needs when it comes to assessment and how to assess their students and how to go about teaching and learning, from there? Excellent question. When it comes to teaching to the test itself, rather than focusing on the set of learning outcomes that you have for a certain course, of course, if you rely on the type of assessment, the type of learning outcomes that are going to be tested, and you focus your teaching on that, of course, I don't know if it is ethical or not, but I would not expect teachers to do that. I know many fall victims for the tests, but it shouldn't be the case. The test here is also not expected to test every single learning outcome that you have in the course or a specific class. You are testing a sample that represents the whole. And okay, I expect you to familiarize your students with the layout of the test, for example, but don't give them the exact questions that will come in the tests, or very similar questions. So what's the point here? You want to know if the students have achieved objectives. So those tests that you are creating should be representative of what you have taught them, but not necessarily similar to every single item you discussed with them. Because obviously when we do formative assessment, we do come up with a lot of assessment tasks. I do expect these to be created for the sake of knowing where our students are heading, whether they are all moving smoothly towards achieving the intended learning outcomes of a certain course or not, but not specifically answering the exam questions right. And when it comes to, if we focus on the types of assessment that we give and we focus on the specific items, for example, an ideal item would be one that would be answered by 50% of the students or the of the test takers. 50%. This is the ideal that I expect from a very good test item. So I'm not expecting everyone to achieve the learning outcomes and be at the same level, okay? And still, they are achieving the learning outcomes, but to different levels from one another. So why teach to the test? Again, this will be mostly found in high-stake assessment rather than in the types of assessment that we have in our institutes, language tests. Let's highlight the type of involvement that we are looking for here, because it has been discussed differently by different researchers and also practiced differently inside the classroom. So if you want active involvement from the students in the assessment itself, why don't you conduct the so-called self-assessment, peer assessment, encourage your students to self-assess themselves, but model it for them at the beginning. Peer assessment, also model it for them and tell them what is the objective of conducting such assessment, directly or indirectly, so that they are aware that this is something that will help them improve their learning. But if you want them to be rather productive in designing assessment, that has been also discussed, or even less than, and self and peer assessment, I would say. But there are some discussions about involving students in creating the test themselves. But again, it will vary, according to the level of the students, the kind of discipline that we are trying to investigate or look into. They can be also involved right from the beginning by sharing the intended learning outcomes. Tell them, what do you think I should be assessing you on in terms of these? Even having the sort of discussion about what should be assessed, what doesn't, is also feeding into the kind of involvement that we are aiming for. And we are doing such things, obviously, in our language classrooms. In student presentations, for example, you always ask students to give feedback to their peers, for example. And before that, you discuss the rubrics with them. Or this is what I expect, actually, any teacher to do. Discuss the rubrics or the assessment criteria with your student and see if they are highlighting a specific matter or not, understand all of these criteria or not, and how are you going to react on that. All of these can be also seen as involving your student in the assessment process itself. Facing challenges. I myself, in the institution I work for, we are dealing with a lot of challenges. We had to make resets exams for our students because technology fails sometimes. Sometimes on the part of the teachers, sometimes on the part of the students, and you have to consider all of these. But generally speaking, if you have a good test that is created for face-to-face classroom, it's not difficult to transfer to a digital mode or to an online platform. Should you have the right platform? Because I know some platforms are nightmares when it comes to delivering tests. Even the formatting of the test can take up more than a day. And this is from my own experience. You have it ready, trial, it's good when it comes to face-to-face session, but when you shift online, all the things that you have not expected, starting from formatting, the display of the test itself on screen, and the navigation the students throughout the test, and how easy it is, the type of network that you have, and the training that you give for your teachers and students. All of these are considerations, and I don't want to be negative here. It can work, but it's not easy if it is done for the first time. So be patient, get the right help from the right people, and I'm sure your assessment will work fine through the online platforms that you're on. Institutions, are using online assessment right now because they have to. So they are into the practice right now, whether it's good or bad, if it is achieving the purpose right now or not. And therefore, I don't think it's wise to stop it once this pandemic is over, because this is one that we are experiencing right now. We don't know what's coming in the future. We have experienced the urgent need for shifting to the online mode for teaching and assessment. So why not continue in the future? I know it's urgent right now. It's an emergency, as somebody call it, but we are doing it anyway. So I would say our institutions are impacted already. They have invested so much, either in training their students, training their teachers, bringing the right infrastructure, I would say, network or, laptops for the students and teachers, webcams. They have invested time, money, a lot of training that is going on in terms of assessment and teaching. So why stop it? Continue, make it better in the future. That's the kind of impact that I would expect for this shift to online learning, to continue with online learning and assessment. It doesn't have to be completely online learning, but we can have some courses that are completely dependent on the online mode, and assessment that are completely dependent on the online mode, courses that are blended, that also rely on face-to-face sessions, face-to-face assessment, and also online testing when we can. So I would say yes, let's shape the impact ourselves. We are forced now, but in the future, it's our choice to continue and use online assessment and online teaching. My interest basically is on assessment literacy. I have also interest in integrating technology in the language classroom. I haven't done much research, but the current papers I'm working on, one of them was on the type of considerations that we need in terms of assessment during the pandemic. And also I'm working on another paper based on my dissertation, and that is basically assessment literacy, how much they know, how do they perceive assessment, and how they practice assessment. language classrooms. There is another paper that I worked on, and that was about the impact of peer assessment on improving student writing in collaboration with other researchers as well. I don't want to limit myself. So the major interest is assessment, of course, but when it comes to language teaching and learning, I'm really happy to investigate any relevant research question to the field itself. And this is an invitation to those who are watching this video today. And my email is provided with this video. Email me if you are interested in collaborating in a research paper or so. We will be learning from each other, and that would be a gain for both of us.